Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Now, we're all used to looking at global conflict through a political lens, right? But today, we're going to try something different. We're going to explore a spiritual one.
I mean, it's a question that so many of us have probably asked ourselves, right? You see the headlines, you hear about peace talks, you see all these calls to end the suffering, and yet the cycle just keeps going. Why is that? So let's really dive into this. The perspective we're exploring today suggests the answer isn't political at all. It says the real roots of this conflict, and maybe even its solutions, are found in something much deeper, in spiritual laws, destiny, and the human soul itself. So, for this explainer, we're going to step away from the geopolitics. Instead, think of this conflict as a kind of spiritual mirror, one that lets us see the powerful forces at play just beneath the surface. Okay, so the first big idea here is something our source calls the karma of nations. It's this idea of taking that spiritual law of cause and effect, what goes around comes around, and applying it not just to individuals, but to entire countries. And get this idea of collective karma completely reframes how we look at history. It's not just a timeline of events anymore, it becomes this living, breathing collective memory, a shared trauma that gets passed down through generations and is still influencing everything that's happening right now. And here's the core analogy that makes it all click. Think about an individual, how someone might unconsciously repeat patterns because of past trauma. Well, this perspective says a whole nation can do the exact same thing, getting led around by these old, powerful emotions like fear, a sense of injustice, and deep-seated anger. So you have all these incredibly powerful historical threads, right? You've got suffering, persecution, loss of land, this profound desire for a homeland, and yes, acts of injustice coming from all sides. The source material describes this as a tangled karmic web. And the key thing to understand is that these aren't just things that happen in the past. They're seen as active, energetic ties that are basically crying out for healing and resolution. Okay, so if that's the web, what keeps the cycle spinning? What fuels it? Well, according to this view, it comes down to a couple of really powerful internal blockages. And it's not just about simple disagreement. We're talking about fear, of course, but also this stubbornness, this deep-seated need to be right. And that need, that focus on being right, is what prevents empathy. It completely blocks the ability to see the shared humanity, what the source calls the divine spark, in your opponent. And when being right becomes more important than being compassionate, well, that's when the conflict just digs in deeper. And let's break down that fear. Because it's not just one thing. It's this really potent cocktail of anxieties. A huge part of it, of course, is the basic fear for survival. But layered on top of that is the fear of losing your identity as a people, of your faith disappearing, of your traditions being wiped out. It's an existential threat, and that kind of fear is just incredibly powerful and so hard to overcome. So here's the tragic feedback loop. The traumatic memories of the past are constantly being projected onto the future. It basically creates this self-fulfilling prophecy of more suffering, and the only way to get out of that loop, according to this view, is to consciously, deliberately break it. So how do you break the cycle? Let's turn to the solution proposed in the source material, which is all about aligning with a higher spiritual law. And it comes down to a principle that is ancient and pretty much universal. Love your neighbor as yourself. Now, this isn't some naive call to just ignore all the real-world problems. It's about a conscious choice, the choice to recognize the sacredness, the value in every single human being, especially in an adversary. And you see this same idea echoed in other traditions too. Take this Vedic teaching, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means the world is one family. It's a powerful reminder that underneath our fractured reality, underneath all the pain and mistrust, we are all ultimately part of a single interconnected human family. So from this spiritual perspective, healing isn't some magical event. It's a process. It has steps. And it starts with a really tough one, acknowledging past failings, both your own and the ones your side has inherited. From there, you move to actively transforming that deep-seated fear with love, then forgiving not just the other side, but yourself. And finally, making that commitment to see the humanity in absolutely everyone. And all of this leads to the ultimate takeaway here, the idea that the peace we see or don't see in the outside world is a direct reflection of our collective internal state. Now, this next idea is really powerful. It suggests that every single individual choice to act with compassion creates what's called a new karmic stream of reconciliation. Think about that.
Every time one person chooses understanding instead of judgment or compassion instead of anger, they're not just changing themselves, they're literally creating a new current, a new possibility for the future. And that new stream can slowly, piece by piece, start to dissolve those old, hard divisions.
And it's so important to get this. This kind of inner work is anything but passive. In fact, it's the foundation for real-world, concrete action. When you practice forgiveness internally, it gives you the strength to support dialogue and justice externally. It allows you to truly, genuinely acknowledge the suffering of others. So, what's the bottom line? From this perspective, a lasting peace isn't going to be found in pointing fingers or assigning blame. It's found in the courage to turn inward, to transform that inherited pain into genuine compassion, and to approach this whole thing from a place of healing first. And that's the thought we're left with today. It's a really profound and honestly a pretty challenging idea. Could it be that the most powerful tool for changing the world isn't actually in the hands of governments or politicians, but in the small, daily choices each of us makes to understand instead of judge?